3. It's showtime. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon from wherever you're watching, and welcome to this very important discussion. We took a long break, but we are back because we have to feel the world, and that is why we are here immediately 3 months later. So in this discussion today, I am joined by an amazing professional. She's also a good friend. She's called Eunice. And we're going to talk to mothers about introducing feeds after the 6 months. Because if you start breastfeeding and you exclusively breastfeed, there's a pattern that has been observed where things are going well for the first 6 months, the baby is growing well, the development, they're reaching their milestones perfectly. And then once the mother introduces feeds, then things start going south. So in today's discussion, Eunice is going to tell us how to make sure these things don't go south and how to correct if they go south. She's going to give us a very easy yet very practical guide that will actually help you as a mom who's actually wondering what to feed your baby or what you should start your baby on, because now the 6-month mark is here. Your baby needs more than your breast milk and you're still confused about what to feed. If you have questions about feeding your baby, about breastfeeding, about weaning and all that, child nutrition, motherhood and all that, make sure that you leave them in the comment section. We'll definitely get back to you after this or even during the discussion. So Eunice, karibu sana. Allow me to introduce myself a bit. My name is Mumina. I'm a clinical nutritionist. And of course, I create content on health and nutrition with a focus on women and children. So if that is something that actually interests you, please make sure that you give me a subscription, give me a like, and share what you'd like me to talk about in the comment section. That will give me a hint that I need to continue doing this. So karibuni sana. Eunice, welcome. Kindly introduce yourself, and then we can start off the discussion.
Thank you so much. Amazing evening to all of you, and good morning wherever you will be watching after this. It's a pleasure to join Lillian tonight. It's a discussion that we've been looking forward to having. She's introduced me, right? My name is Eunice Kilesi. I can say that once again. I'm a clinical nutritionist as well. I have specialized in pediatric nutrition with the Nutrition Dietetics Academy in Kenya. And this is something that has always been of interest to me because I feel like, yes, we've talked about nutrition so much, but most of the time we leave the meat of the matter because, I mean, we are too many in the field, but we still have anemia, we still have malnutrition, especially now that we have the triple burden of malnutrition. We have micronutrient deficiencies, we have undernutrition and overnutrition. So this is something that is close to my heart because I have had an experience of being a mother. As you can hear my background, I have a gentleman, calling out our names. He's very busy. So it's part of our journey, and we are proud of what we are doing. And thank you so much, Lillian, for inviting me. We are going to have a lovely discussion tonight. So karibuni sana, gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Eunice, for that. And as you've heard, she has failed to introduce her professional bit. She's also a pediatric nutritionist. This means that she has, what is it? The English is refusing.
I have specialized.
Specialized, oh my God. She has specialized in pediatric nutrition. So she's the perfect guest for this topic because now we are talking about babies and that is what she does and more. Of course, when you talk about babies, you cannot leave their mothers. She's also an expert in maternal health and nutrition. And she also runs Nourished by Kilesi. By the way, you guys should actually follow that. It's a platform where she shares bits, not even bits, she shares a lot about nutrition and motherhood, practical, realistic, and whatever we are actually going through as mothers. Like, you will relate because I have read her articles, and personally in the space where I am currently, because I'm currently breastfeeding, we are almost 3 months. So I am relating so much with her content, and I think that's why after my long break, she's actually the most fit to come in because I also want to get some nuggets here and there. So Eunice, karibu sana once again. And If you have questions about motherhood, if you have questions about feeding your infant, feel free to ask them in the comment section. So we have a brief discussion. It's not going to be a lot because of the time. And as Eunice has said, things are happening in the background. We don't want to start shouting, and we don't want you guys to start hearing shouting. So I will go straight to the point. We are talking about starting solids after 6 months. So this is basically for the mother, for that caregiver, for even the dad, with for the professional who you're going to meet people who are going to ask you, what am I going to feed my baby? How am I going to feed them? And common mistakes that they should avoid to ensure that they are protecting and maintaining the baby's nutrition and health status. So karibu sana Eunice. And the first question that I had for our speaker today, I don't want this to be like an interrogative session, so you can also guide me Eunice, but we had a guide, and juu ya hiyo pressure ya kuingia anxiety and all that, I will definitely start with the questions before we can start into the discussions. So let's talk about why it is very important for this period, after 6 months. In practice, we usually say after the 181st day. Now, after 180 days, now, why is it so important for us to have these conversations with caregivers, with mothers, and definitely why is it that we have to talk about it after the 6 months? What next? Eunice?
All right, thank you so much, Lillian. You've actually raised a very important point, especially when it comes to the number of days. I know that there's a lot of confusion. People usually say, oh, after 6 months, after 5 months, is it where? So you've done a very good clarification. So forget about months. I usually say count the days, and it's the days of the life. So if you got your baby at 36 weeks, we are still okay. We are still at 180 days. That doesn't mean that the baby is now going to start feeding after 9 months of life. No, we start after, like we start counting the day of birth. Okay. So the 181st day is when we begin our complementary feeding. So we call it complementary feeding. I know that previous generations used to call it weaning, but weaning basically means that you are taking away something, or you are yani unarudisha nyuma, like you're now starting to get it back. So for example, if you want to cease breastfeeding, so that is when we can say that you are weaning. Okay. So if you are still breastfeeding and you're doing complementary and your baby is 6 months, so we call it complementary feeding. Okay. Because complementary meaning that the main food is still the breast milk, but because it's no longer enough, we are going to complement it with something else that is going to fill that gap. Okay. So we normally have two very important gaps, that is vitamin A and iron. Those usually begin, declining. It no longer, the breast milk does not supply the iron that the baby needs and that is sufficient for them. It does not have enough vitamin A that we start getting infections, because we know that the role of vitamin A in immunity, we know the role of iron in anemia. So then those are the most important nutrients that we need to discuss immediately when we begin complementary feeding. So breast milk is no longer sufficient because the iron stores are being depleted. Okay, breast milk is still very, very amazing. It has, all the fats, the proteins, the micronutrients it does. But then the problem is there is a gap, because the baby's growth, their stomach is also, capacity is increasing, their bodies are increasing, their activity levels are increasing. And and most of the time, this is the time that if the mother is is someone that is working outside the home, then this is someone who has already started leaving the baby for longer hours. The employer does not give more grace than they used to when the baby was 3 months. Or if you are a person who is doing business, uko hustle yako, then it becomes increasingly difficult for you to be there for your child, like breastfeeding the way you used to on demand. So tumegongwa na meza.
Boy, that must be painful, eh?
Sorry, baby.
That must be painful. Pole sana mama. Pole. You see why women need special treatment. Watu wanasemanga ati ni kujipenda and feminism. It's not about feminism, yo. You see, like now we are having some discussion and the babies, they're crying. She has to attend to him. She also has to attend to us and give us some insights as a professional. It's a lot. But we continue with the hustle and the fight because we are women and we are super women. We are superhumans. Eh? Are we really superhumans? I think the fact that, yeah, that is a conversation that you're going to have another time because you're not superhuman. Women need to learn, especially mothers, we need to learn how to slow down. Eh? I'm in that space of learning that. Eunice, karibu sana. Welcome back. I was just complaining about being a woman.
Oh, goodness, it's a lot. Like, hey, wacha tu Mungu, wacha tu grace itutoshe kwa sababu, like, it's everything. But we cannot do everything. Like just you've said, we are not superhuman.
Yeah.
We are limited in our capacity, but we try our best because we want to share what we have as well, our experiences. We want to make it real because it's not like, I don't know whether people expect the perfection and just being shown that everything is seamless, it's effortless. You know, ni kama tumeingia kwa internet sana, tumeona perfect mothers, you know, those momfluencers. So you rarely hear babies crying, you rarely see, you know, things going on in the background. Maybe they have a team of nannies. We can only afford maybe extra help, but otherwise evenings, this is ndio tuko.
Actually, people,
Yeah,
that's the
so
worst thing about the current trend, the current society. People have a lot of expectations because of the social influence, as you have said. Watu wana expect perfectionism. People expect you have it all figured out. Because there's this trend that I think it's demeaning to women. Each trend, you are strong enough to bear the children and get back to business. Because no, you can't get back to business just like that. It can't happen. And with such trends becomes a problem. But we continue. Let's continue, Eunice, with
yeah, it
your.
cannot be business as usual when you get babies.
It can't. I agree.
Yeah, I usually say that it's a myth when you say you can have it all. No, you have to, like, seasons of life will demand some parts of you more than others.
Kabisa, I agree.
Yeah, so the concept of complementary feeding, I've already explained that it's just a transition period between breast milk. You're still doing, I like to say that it's not just breast milk because I extend grace to women who have not, and families who have not been able to breastfeed because I know that it's not possible for all mothers. We're not going to pretend that, you know, we have achieved 100% exclusive breastfeeding. There are still babies who are doing exclusive replacement feeding. And some unfortunate events can occur that we begin, you know, with diluted cow's milk and all that. So I understand that. I extend grace to such families because I know I have experienced that some families cannot afford breast milk. Not really afford, but the mother is not there. Maybe they are dead, or maybe they cannot, they do not have the capacity to. And there are too many circumstances usually, you know, that hey, leo tutajionea. So, yes, so I've already talked about why it's called complementary feeding and when we begin. So I think maybe we can discuss why it shouldn't begin early or maybe it shouldn't begin late, okay? So remember that this is a growing baby. These are growing organs. The baby is still growing pole pole. So we have the stomach capacity, we have still maturing organs. So the reason why we do not begin at the, you know, before 6 months is because of maturing organs, especially the digestive system. The digestive system is not able to handle most of the foods. And another issue, the biggest issue is usually hygiene. I think one of my articles, I talked about why the ESPEN and the WHO speak two different languages, because I know that in Europe and in the, you know, in the West, they usually recommend that you begin complementary feeding at about 4 months and above. But then the differences is usually that in Africa we have, not that we have a different system, but we know that our issues to do with hygiene, observation of, you know, exact combinations is where the problem is. So, Debbie, why are you getting frustrated? So I know that, especially now that our mothers have access to internet, wanaingia kwa TikTok, wanaingia wapi. I know a lot of mothers are getting advice online. So especially this goes to our healthcare workers. I know that a lot of us are usually like black and white, but I want to tell you that when it comes to complementary feeding, there's no black and white. For sure, you are going to get mad at mothers because of, when they confess to you that they began complementary feeding before 6 months. And I want to remind you that there's something called ethics, and one of the ethical principles is autonomy. So you always anza kwenda kushika mama mashati. So if they began at 4 months, you're not going to do so. Then what are you going to do to make sure that whatever they are feeding the baby is adequate? Because from there, hautaanza kusema sijui kulienda kukakua. No, you are going to continue with how the journey is. So extend grace to the mothers who have done that. Of course, we understand that you're not going to encourage, because we know that the kidneys are going to be overloaded by sodium. We know that we are not going to be able to handle constipation because of the fiber. The baby is not able to, to handle all those things before 6 months, all right? So introducing the complementary feeding late also means that you're denying this baby a chance to fill that gap that has been left by the insufficiency of the mother's breast milk, okay? So remember, if I can put it in plain language, tunaendelea kukua dilute, okay? So as the mother continues getting busy, their diet is also not getting as good as it was, because maybe some of our mothers usually get care for the first 3 or 2 months. They are fed, they are taken care of, but after some time, they do not get the support that they had at the beginning. So inakuwa ngumu wao kufeed sufficiently, it becomes difficult for them to get the care that they needed, so they do not have the same quantity and the quality of the, remember there's also quality of breast milk, okay? So it's not just about quantity, it's also quality. So the quality of the fat and the protein that is in the breast milk inapungua as we go on, okay? So the danger is that you're going to make this baby start having micronutrient deficiencies as well as undernutrition. So yeah, that is what I can say. I think those are the first 3 points that we can go with.
I agree, Kabisa. And I've just thought that maybe we can have like a small reel. I don't know how that will work, on the dangers of early or late introductions to complementary feeding for this. I'll try and do that for a promotion on this as well. Because I like the fact that you have introduced and said that the Western world, people are more willing to adapt to what you want them to say, to the standards, especially of hygiene, of meal combinations, consistencies, and such. And of course, we have culture. And I think one of the contributing factors to the failed adherence is our culture's norms and beliefs. So I think as Kenyans or in Africa, it's okay. We can just be okay with that. Please excuse my background. It's a bit loud. So please excuse it, but it is well. So now there's something that someone will ask you now at 4 months, because at 4 months, we as professionals, we might understand how to know if a baby is ready to feed. And of course, there are cues that we teach mothers, or mothers should be taught in this CWC. Unfortunately, they are really not taught. That's the sad reality, because unaendanga tu hapo, unapimwa kilo, anapimwa height, anapewa vaccinations, anaambiwa the next day of vaccination, anaambiwa aende kumulizwa kuna shida. If you ask a mother kama kuna shida, someone might not even think that the baby reaching out is a problem, or is something that they should actually look out for. Someone might not know that the baby being constipated is an issue. Someone might not know that dehydration, the baby not having tears, the baby not having enough water is a problem. So I think sometimes we as professionals need to stop. Of course, we can ask. We definitely say that the mother is the first doctor. Yes, of course, we have to ask if the baby is okay, ama kuna shida and all that. But as we ask, we also need to tell them. So I think you need to guide us on how parents can know if their babies are ready for complementary feeds, or for solids, as we call them. So some of the common signs that they should actually look out for to know if their babies are ready and willing, and they are going to take these feeds well. If you're ready.
Yeah, of course. It's very important for us to understand that this baby is not going to live in the hospital. The mother is the one who's going to go home with that child. So the moment you understand that you're going to give information, and it's up to the mother to extend, or not really to extend, but to implement what you've told them, then it becomes very easy, because you're going to treat the mother as a team player and not not your child. You're going to treat this mother as a part of your team, right? So two things that are very important for us to observe, very very obvious. Hakuna mtu anakulanga chakula kama amelala. Okay, Lilian, are you okay? Can you hear me? Lilian,
Yes, I can
okay?
hear you.
Okay,
I'm having
okay,
some small background issues hapa, but nakusikia.
All right. So the thing I want every mother to go, to a takeaway that they can, they can go home with today is something to do with sitting. Okay. So if your baby is able to support themselves, know that there's a solid is something that can choke a child. So if they're able to support their neck and they're able to support themselves and sit, then it means that they're able to swallow the food properly. Okay. So there is safety in swallowing. All right. Another thing is, of course, when the child is, most of the babies that are okay, like the development is normal, then it means that they already had head control by the second month, right? So good head control is very important, and sitting upright. Please, I am on a live. All right, so this baby is already able to show interest in the food. Okay, so mtoto anataka kugrab chakula yako, whatever you're eating, they follow you with their head. So it means that they're showing interest. Of course, I know that some babies show interest as early as 4 months. But now it like the two most important things is making sure that this baby is able to sit without support, and they have already lost the tongue thrust reflex. Okay, unajua hiyo reflex ya unaekea mtoto kitu alafu anatema. So most of the time we know that when the babies are young, especially when they are breastfeeding, they have that reflex, they wanacheua. So that means that something is happening to their tongue. So but with time, when you can put them, like unazaeka like you can extend the breast to their mouth alafu wakose kusikia hiyo kutapika. So it means that they can be able to swallow. Okay, so they can automatically push food out of their tongue and swallow as well. Okay, so pushing and okay, so it means that hata wakishindwa kutafuna hiyo chakula ama washindwa kumeza wanaweza tema. All right, so two very important things: sitting with support and tongue thrust reflex.
Hello.
So if you are able to put food in the baby's mouth and they're not going to push it out, so it means that they're able to control their tongue reflex, that is, and then they're able to support themselves. Another sasa hiyo kitu ingine ni wana show interest. Okay, so they have good control, they're showing interest, and they're able to sit without support, and then they have lost the tongue and thrust reflex. So that means that they're not pushing the food out. I hope that is okay. Sijatumia Kiingereza mingi.
No, it's good enough. Trust me, it's good enough. I hope people are able to understand what to feed or how to look for signs. Because majority of us are aware about the interest in food, but hiyo ya sitting, neck support, saa zingine unaona tu mtoto hata ajiwezi, mama amejikaza, amemshikilia na mtoto wa 2 months anajikaza apewe. Some people are refusing the bottle and we expressed, but we shall see what to do. It's not nice. Anyway, it is well. So one of the mistakes that actually parents say that you have talked about, I like the fact that you started with saying when is the right time to start solids or not. You talked about not either too early or too late. And I hope mothers and caregivers are able to understand that we need to make sure that we get the timing right so that we can be able to support and promote nutrition and health status for our babies. So I think one of other mistakes that I think you have also talked about is starting too late. But there's also the aspect of now the Kenyan mothers, when they are introducing solids, or even someone who's actually not just necessarily breastfeeding. As you said, you can be on replacement feeds, you can be on something else, but now you want to introduce other feeds or solids. Now, And then we have this aspect where the mothers comes in, anachunga unga, akitengeneza uji, anachunga akishatoa kwa nini, kwa jiko, then anachunga before yake kwa bottle. The baby ends up taking like maji tu kawaida, and wanaongeza salt, wanaongeza skari. Unasikia mama akisema, we, mtoto wangu hawezi kula chakula ina skari. That baby does not even notice to start introducing problems too early. So Eunice, you can take us through a brief understanding of what a baby's first food should look like. Like some mtoto apewe chakula inakaaje. This is a mother who's like come into this life, anafaa kupea mtoto. They are wondering what to give their baby, how the food should look like, quantities and such, and even frequencies. Let's bearing in mind that we still need to continue with breastfeeding or whatever we are replacing breast milk with.
Thank you so much for bringing up that issue. So one thing I know that it's not that Kenyan, not really Kenyan just, but necessarily mothers. It's not like mothers don't love their babies. It's that they are cautious to a fault. They have not been taught better. Because for you to find a mother sieving the baby's food, it means that they do not understand that the food has fiber and the baby needs that fiber to be able to digest that food, all right? So maybe something that I did not mention about introducing the complementary feeding early is because remember these babies' stomach lining, okay? So the lining is usually not very much haijahil vizuri, not really haijadevelop, so inaweza kuwa injured by the food that you've introduced, and then kama hiyo food haikuwa safi ama kama ilikuwa na issues, it's going to cause diarrhea and possibly introduce allergies. So you've talked about that, and then introducing foods late, it means that I have already talked about that, about missing on the important nutrients. So now, ideally, the food should look like this. Consistency, it should be a bit thick. It should not be runny. Ukiweka kwa spoon, haifai kuanguka. So if you're going to give the baby maybe a soup or a porridge, because I'm not a stickler for porridge. I am for whatever works for your baby. I'm not going to start saying that lazima ikuwe cereals, lazima ikuwe, no. I'm open to, as long as that food contains iron, it has a vitamin A, it has a source of protein, I am all right with that, all right? So this is what it looks like, okay? So it should be a smooth puree, no lumps, but usipitishe kwa kichungi. So that means that you can blend, especially the first month, right? Because bado hiyo, the reflex is still developing. So they might, refuse, wanaweza tema, ama wanaweza shindwa kumeza because they're used to something. So unaanza pole pole, you go with, like a thick paste. Another thing is the consistency. So I've talked about the food not dripping from the spoon, something like a thick yogurt or mashed avocado or a mashed banana, something like that. So you can just use a basic, fork. Sawa. So the quantity, I think I have talked about FATVA. FATVA means that you are going to look at the consistency, the frequency. So I've begun with the texture, and then I've talked about consistency. Now quantity, the first 2 weeks, the 6 months, 1 to 2 tablespoons per feed, which is about 2 feeds per day. So hiyo inafaa kukuambia that you shouldn't have pressure. Usikuwe na pressure ya kuwekea chakula kwa mtoto kwa bakuli alafu una expect amalize yote. I know that is sometimes what frustrates our mothers. We find ourselves giving babies a whole bowl of food, expecting them to finish, alafu you get frustrated. So remember, we begin with a tablespoon to 2, right? Twice a day, peke yake, all right? So remember, the primary food is still breast milk, sawa. And then we are going to look, the most important nutrients, the beginning of those 6 months I've already talked about, is vitamin A, talked about iron. Sawa. So ukipata hizo sources tunazipata. So that means your maragwe, unapata hapo kamayai. So if you're able to maybe boil some eggs and then unazimash, if you're able to maybe get some soup, alafu umash, all right? So you're going to get the two of the most important nutrients that we want to begin with, all right? So make sure you're also observing hygiene. You wash the baby's hands, you also wash your own. Make sure that your preparation area is very clean so that you do not start introducing microbes that are going to make this child sick immediately. Sawa. So ideally, that is how it should look like. Maybe in the second week, the third week of the 6th month is when now you go continually, you go to half a cup, and then kidogo, by the time we get to 9 months, at least tunafika kwa cup. So lower your expectations. Your baby's stomach is still the size of a strawberry when they are born. So wakiendelea, look at their fist. Sio yako. Sawa. Their feast is what determines the quantity of the food that they are going to take. I know that this is what disturbs a lot of mothers. And please don't introduce salt in the beginning because of the sodium that is very high. Most of the foods that we take, they have sodium, okay? So I know that there are concerns to do with iodine. I know that that is one of the concerns. But if you're going to add salt, maybe it comes later on, but ni kidogo. You don't add immediately when you start, all right? Kanga chakula ya mtoto, they have taste buds. They do not want, remember that breast milk is sweet. So if you start introducing bland foods, this baby is going to resist. So kama wewe huwezi kula your bland food, remember that your baby is also going to resist bland food. So kanga chakula ya mtoto, put some onions, put some tomatoes, kanga chakula, put a little bit of oil because oil is also important. We need the avocados, the healthy fats, very important, okay? So your olive oil, the avocado, the cold pressed oils. I know that we have a lot of conversations about oil right now going on, but these babies, all the cells contain oil and fats. So usianze kwenda kuchemshia mtoto chakula, please. Yeah, so you can still do porridge, but make sure that the flour that you're going to use is fortified and fermented if that is possible, because we do not want to just fill the baby's stomach. We want to make sure that you're giving the baby something that is valuable to them, all right? You can do yogurt as well, but don't start with milk. Cow's milk and other milk that is not coming from your nipple might not be very helpful at this stage. Juices might not be very helpful. You can do maybe a blended juice by maybe in the next 1 month, but the beginning, low pressure. We are still dwelling so much on breast milk. So I hope that is clear. You pea mtoto maji kidogo. You begin with at least, because now the kidneys are able to bear some water, but if you're still breastfeeding and you're with the baby, then we also encourage that you do expressing if you're going to leave the baby. If the quantity of your milk is able to to sustain expressing, then the better, so that we can have fluids. Mtoto asikunywe pia maji mingi, because I mean they also you have to control everything. Is just in moderation. Kidogo unaanza pole, okay?
And also maybe just to add on the fluids, pure water is not, a lot of pure water is not recommended for infants because it can bring about brain swelling. So yes, unaambiwanga, I remember when you were doing this, ulikuwa unaambia mama, if you give her 2 tablespoons of food, you give her 1 small tablespoon of water after the feed. So yes, the baby should take water, but of course water is easy to take, so they might prefer it to food. But as a parent, unaweza jipata like unampea tu maji. So avoid and try and shy away from giving them that, because pure water or the itaongezwa salts and osmolarity ikachangiwa here and there is not the best. Too much of it is not the best for your infant. And as Eunice said, if you're continuing on breastfeeding, you continue breastfeeding on demand, because we need to make sure that the babies are still getting the feeds, the protein, the macros, and as well as the hydration from water. And of course, because you're introducing other feeds, you're also introducing other microbes, and you're introducing things that can cause changamoto kwa immunity. So of course, breast milk supports that. That is very important. And I want to bring the concern that we currently have when it comes to child obesity. Now, because of nutrition status for the mothers pre and during pregnancy, you might find that some babies might have been exposed to obesity or not. Now, with the trend that we're having in Kenya currently, you started by saying that we are currently dealing with the triple burden of malnutrition. You remember, we are having undernutrition coexisting with overnutrition. This is a perfect window for us to prevent or to control obesity for our children. Now, you can give us some neat kidogo tips on how we can make sure that our babies are feeding enough, they are feeding well, and they're actually supporting their development milestones without overdoing it or without harming their metabolism to get or exposing them to conditions like obesity. Eunice, childhood obesity, maybe you can
Absolutely,
address it.
absolutely a very important topic. I remember there was a time we had talked about childhood obesity, but it's still very important for us to bring it up. So one
Yeah.
point about it is babies that have usually so babies that have been breastfed usually have a control system of satiety and hunger and satiety cues. Okay, so the leptin and the ghrelin hormone zinakuanga very very good kwa mtoto ambaye amekuwa breastfed. That is, research has been done. So if the baby has been formula fed, that could be a problem. And I know that babies who have been formula fed have, so the signals are a bit weird for children who have not been breastfed. Okay, and the amount of calories that usually are available in formula milk, najua, this is a conversation that we cannot avoid. Most mothers are usually tempted to do a mixed feeding because wanaambiwa mtoto atashiba atalala vizuri kwa infant formula. Okay, so that means that you're introducing extra calories to the baby that are going to be stored and they are possibly going to get obesity. Okay, that being said, when you're introducing complementary feeding, you also have a window of preventing obesity, right? And this also has something to do with the status of the mother. So if the mother had issues to do with gestational diabetes, they dealt with preeclampsia, they had other non-communicable diseases, maybe they have a family history of non-communicable diseases, so that means that the child is going to be the predisposing factors for obesity are present for that child. Okay, so it's not just a cut and dry. It's not like a black and white issue when it comes to childhood obesity. But for complementary feeding, we can begin with making sure that we're giving this baby whole foods, right? So that means that we are going to avoid things to do with fast foods, ultra processed foods. So that means that foods zenye zimepakejiwa to avoid. I know that it's not easy for especially urban areas to get food straight from the market or from from Mama Mboga. It's not easy, but I know that it is something that we can try. But just know that foods that have been packaged have more ingredients, especially sodium. They have a lot of sugar. They have unhealthy fats. I'm confident that a lot of ingredients have not been listed in the label. So, these are some of the things that we deal with, and they expose children to obesity. And remember, a lot of processed foods are usually also ziko na satiety, all right? Like they have low satiety, si kama whole food, so unajipata you've eaten a lot of food. The mother is feeding the baby a lot of food, and basically just means that the low calories, not really low calories, the foods are high in calories, but they are empty in nutrients. All right, so that is the danger of introducing the processed foods and discounting the benefits of whole foods, and especially food that has been harvested, the source. Seafood. Sijui kama mmeona hii joke ya the McDonald's CEO when he was giving a taste to their burger. He called that burger a product. So if you find yourself unapea mtoto food ambayo some ingredients are not even, like they are strange. I know that some of the ingredients are healthy, but most of the ingredients that are in our fast foods and ultra processed foods are not healthy for the baby. So these are things that introduce obesity. All right, so we can arrest that. We have that period of making sure that we have actually made sure that this child's physiology and psychology imekuwa, you've trained these babies taste buds to love natural foods and to avoid the foods that are ultra processed, because you know that ultra processed foods usually have a combination of MSG, iko salt, iko sugar, it has a lot of oils, so that combination is very addictive. People go to to school to study food science to make sure that they alter tastes of foods ndio zikuwe addictive. All right, so sometimes unajipata you've eaten a lot of fried foods and then first thing your mind remembers is a sugary drink. So that connection in your brain, it means that something is playing with your psychology, and it's not just about hormones, it is also about your taste buds. All right, so taste buds, hormones, the whole rewiring of the brain is very important for us to know that we can be able to, if you introduce, I have seen a lot of a pediatric practitioner advocating for not beginning with sweet fruits because of that taste, because the moment you begin with sweet fruits, it will be difficult for you to give this baby bland fruits and vegetables, because mtoto atakuwa amezoea vitu tamu 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 tamu. I know that it's very tempting to begin with ndizi, begin with strawberries, begin with, so the moment you go and introduce that baby to your bland thick yogurt, atasikia ni bland. Ukimpea mboga, ukimpea brokoli hapo, umpe sukuma, umpe makabeji zako, kama haujazifanya zikuwe tamu, so it means that you are altering the taste. So that means that the whole biochemistry of food means that you also need to take care of what this baby is eating, how they perceive taste, and how you introduce foods. All right, so that is why you need to sit down with a nutritionist. Usiende online kuchukua hizi vitu, because ndio kuna information online, but does that chatbot understand your baby? So that means that it is another human who's going to understand your baby, because you're going to talk through so that you can understand. So obesity is a problem that we have right now, and mothers, a chubby child is not necessarily a healthy child. It doesn't mean that najua compliments zinakwanga mingi, gaya mtoto wako anakaa vizuri lakini mchubby, hizo vitu, that is a trap, because you're going to make your baby overeat just because you're like, you love the compliments. I know, especially online, ukishaika katoto ka chubby, compliments. And I know that we are in that social media era where people are just hungry for compliments and comments. Guys, it's not worth it, because you're going to introduce this child to a lifelong problem. Right now we are dealing with cases of type 2 diabetes as young as 8 years old. So you have an 8-year-old with 55 kgs, 56 kgs, mnafanyiana nini na mtoto hizo kilo? Kwani ni mfugo? Kwani ni mifugo? So yeah, alter the taste. Begin with whole foods, begin with things that are practical, and you'll have afadhali mtoto mkonde ambaye ako sawa, because some of the slim children are not actually malnourished. Some of them are just very healthy. Take them and check their calcium levels, vitamin D levels, very nice. So they are growing well, they're doing okay. Obese, not healthy, not good.
And maybe just to add, I think the biggest promoters of obese children are our parents and their peers, because I think they will tell you, oh, mtoto anakaa mkonda sana, mtoto mnono ni mzuri, so they encourage you. But as Eunice has said, please make sure that you talk to a professional. Sorry, I dropped laptop ilizima. Yep, but I have catched up, so all is well. So I think when you think about childhood obesity, there's a lot that we need to do as a country and as professionals and as mothers and caregivers as well, because the six month mark, as Eunice has said, I have a client who's 9, The mom, of course, reached out. The boy is 9, and he's like early progress. Like a year ago, when she reached out, and I talked to her. I told her, let's do this and this, and then she disappeared. She just told me, whatever you're telling me can't work in my household. She went away. Now she's back 9 years. The boy is diabetic. Like I shall diagnose you, it's no longer pre-diabetes, it's now diabetes. So there's a lot that we can do at this mark, ili watoto wakiwa wadogo, and as caregivers make sure that venye Eunice amesema, don't be too blunt when you're introducing their foods. Make sure that the foods is interesting, but try as much as you can to teach their palate about eating and consuming healthier foods. It will actually help us in reducing the increased incidences of obesity. So thank you. Because you're talking about some of the things that can happen when you introduce feeds. Of course, obesity or undernutrition is one of them. We talked about how to prevent undernutrition. We say that you make sure that you're feeding on demand, you're breastfeeding on demand, you're feeding good consistencies, not too light, not too thick. And then you're also watching on hygiene, temperatures, taste, and all that. Now, let's talk about another thing that is very common after feed introduction. We are seeing it with babies even who are still on breastfeeding, because we are seeing eczema, we are seeing skin reactions here and there. So let's talk about allergies and how we can tackle them as we introduce feeds. We are not. This is a whole topic that requires a whole 1 hour of discussion. So I don't think if you'll be able to tackle much, but you can give us an idea of someone. Like, I'm a mother, I'm searching on how to prevent allergic and how to make sure that my baby is receptive to more foods in the future. What should I do? Some of the guides and such.
So thank you so much, Lillian, for that the trajectory. I think for the past 10 or so years, we've experienced allergies. I think I can count, out of the 10 mothers that I know, friends, I think about 3 of them have babies with allergies. So one thing that I have noticed is we do not have adequate testing in Kenya to differentiate whether it's a dietary issue, whether it's an environmental issue, it's a toxin issue. So I know that allergy is something that I can approach with caution. I'm not going to say that foods are the ones that cause allergies. I am going to say that a lot of allergies are still in research in Kenya. But if you've had a privilege to get testing and it has been confirmed that there's an allergy, then it means that most of the time it's about a protein, maybe an egg, maybe animal protein. I have not had cases of children being allergic to animal plant source proteins except peanuts. Okay, so personally, I have not come across children with peanut allergies, but I've come across lactose intolerance. I have come across children with allergies with animal protein. So I can say that sometimes, because of caution, we delay introducing some foods that are known to be allergen. Okay, so kitu kama eggs, fish, peanuts, and dairy. Okay, so I know that we talked about cow's milk, but I said exclusively it's cow's milk, fresh milk. So that means that yogurt should be given at 6 months and above. Mala kama inawezekana, these babies should be given. So I can say that cautiously introduce foods that you perceive that they're the babies could be allergic to, especially if you come from a family that has a history of allergies. So I can say that there's a lot of misconceptions and a gap in information in Kenya when it comes to allergies. So I know that eczema is becoming common, but I can attribute it to environmental pollution and mothers using harsh soaps, the fragrances, wanatumia fabric softeners, those conditioners, there are a lot of issues that surround allergies. So I can say with confidence that it is not just a nutrition issue, it is a multifactorial issue. Yeah, so that is what I can say with confidence.
Thank you, Eunice, for that. And maybe just to add, because you see, when mothers go to research about allergies and intolerances, of course, they are met with early introduction as a strategy to prevent allergies, especially if you have a history of allergies in your home or if you have a history of intolerances to certain foods. So of course the mother will come to you and ask, but Mumina, you tell me to wait until the 180 days or the 6 months are over, and I have been following around. They will not tell you they have been Googling. I've been following around and I've heard that I should introduce allergens as early as 4 months. If you are at risk, there's data to show that that might actually help. Actually, if because the baby's gut is still a bit more receptive. But again, you need to do it with caution. It's actually recommended that you do it guided, especially if you have a history of allergies and intolerances in your family, because some can be genetic, some can be genetic. And if that happens, of course, if that is the case, then of course you need to try as much as you can to eliminate it. And but again, you need guidance while doing that. So thank you so much for that, Eunice. And if you have questions about our topic of discussion today, make sure that you feel free to leave it in the comment section. We are talking about what to feed the baby when you introduce solids. Just a recap of what we have talked about. We have talked about when to know that your baby is ready for solids. We have also highlighted what to look for, and we have also introduced on what you should do when you want your baby to start on solids. And if you're looking for a nutritionist or a pediatric nutritionist to work with you, I will leave Eunice's contact in the comment section because she will guide you. Sometimes some things are personalized. We are talking about generally about babies. You can be saying, like Eunice said, some babies do not even feed, they refuse breastfeeding. Now you have to work with pump feeding, or replacement feeding, or whatever will work for you and for that mother in that situation at that particular moment. Other babies will come in and they'll just have regressions here and there. They were doing well, milestones, then things start going south. The mother might not understand what is happening. They might be having an issue that needs to be addressed. And as I said, sometimes it's okay for you to ask and prompt questions. Of course, I will ask you, the mother, because I believe and I trust that you understand what's best for your baby the most, and you know what has changed or what has not. But it's also important that you get someone's else's opinion, because you might be thinking that it's normal for my baby to stagnate. It's normal for her to have issues with walking. It's normal for her to have delays here and there, but sometimes it might be. And then, of course, the social media era, of course, the pressure here and there. Watoto wanaweza kupea pressure, unafikiria what is normal is no longer normal. So it's okay for you to get a second opinion, and Eunice does that very well. So you have talked about the foods that we are supposed to introduce. You need to say that we don't introduce just one particular type of food. She said that she's not going to tell you to introduce this and this. Just make sure that you're working on the consistency, you're working on the variety, and you're working on safety and hygiene standards. So I think all this should be considered for a mother. And I think I want to now, something that we do a lot in Kenya, we do porridge, as I said, we sieve it, and that is the most used introductory food for women in the country. Inaonga uji, malenge, spinach na carrot, si ndio? Na ikizidi naongeza mchele, then inablendiwa. The baby is expected to drink that every single day. What is the dangers of that? Because it's something that is happening a lot, and it's really, really annoying.
Hey, I remember the first attachment that I went to, and I thought it was a joke. That mama anasema nimemblendia kamalenge, kandizi, kaviazi na kaspinach. I'm like,
Yeah, kandizi, I had forgotten about the banana.
Na kaspinach. So, I don't know who told us that we need all those starches and starchy foods. I know that tumetoka kwa starch. I know that there are foods that are protein in nature and they also have starch. Okay, so I would want mothers to understand that you are not going to get more just because you're giving more. So giving one type of carbohydrate is okay, and making sure that this baby's diet is diverse. All the food groups that are required, we've talked about 10 food groups, but for a day, you can check the list and make sure that you've given 5, right? So not two foods from the same group, no. 5 different food groups. So that means that you can choose each moja. So you can choose a tomato from one group. You can choose beans from another group. You can choose greens from just maybe spinach from one group. And then you can choose sweet potato or an arrowroot. And then you can choose a banana. Okay. So just put that in mind. Okay. So I remember I had said that we shouldn't begin with sweet things. So maybe banana, you can let go. Maybe you can begin with a pawpaw, okay? Paipai, avocado, I prefer bland fruits first, right? Because the moment you begin sweet fruits, umeharibu your taste. So think of it as the old school thinking was ilikuwa inaitwa balanced diet, okay? So you have your vitamin, you have your carbohydrate, you have your protein. So think of that every diet, every meal that the baby is going to have. So if you've chosen to do breakfast, maybe consistency ya mtoto kuamka inakwanga tofauti, maybe anaamka 10 ama 9. Think about giving 3 kinds of food, okay? So umekanga chakula, if it's cooking temperatures ziko tofauti, cooking times zinaisha, food inaiva tofauti na hiyo, also think about that so that you do not give a baby undercooked food or overcooked food, because you're also going to lose the nutrients, all right? So think of that. Think about giving the baby things that are actually filling, not just kujaza tumbo, but they're also nutritious, okay? So things that are going to maximize the protein, the carbohydrate, and the vitamins. Let me just use that, the simple language that I can possibly use, right? So the moment you sieve that food, okay, so we've already talked about the kind of food that you're going to give, but there's also something we call fiber, okay? So this baby needs to poop. They need to go to the toilet. They need to excrete the things that they're eating because their digestive system needs to be good. So think fiber. If you sieve that baby's food, na umepitisha kwa blender ama umepitisha kwa kichungi, so that means that you're also going to reduce the consistency of this food. You're going to make it watery, ndio ipite kwa hiyo kichungi. So that means that you've diluted that food. So it means that ndio mtoto akule mingi, ndio itabidi amekula mingi ajaze tumbo, okay? So the moment you begin thinking about the consistency, umepitisha kwa kichungi, umemaliza fiber, na inabidi umepea mtoto chakula mingi ndio ashibe. And remember, this baby's capacity of food is, the stomach capacity is still small. So make sure that the food is thick enough so that those 2 tablespoons are going to be filling. They're going to be nutritious. They're going to be sufficient, and they have the fiber that the baby needs so that they do not get constipation. All right. So uji, I think I had already talked about uji. Uji is not the kryptonite for babies. You don't have to give uji. We have a lot of carbohydrate sources. We have sorghum, we have millet, we have maize, and I think value ya maize iko chini. It's controversial, but when it comes to carbohydrates, we have far superior carbohydrates. The arrowroots, the cassavas, these are also any carbohydrates. So don't just think about giving the baby porridge, okay? I know that it's ideal, unaweka tu dakika 15 umeshatoa umempea mtoto, but that is now the time you get temptations to start giving sijui umweke kaskari kanini the enriching. You start enriching the porridge, ndio unapata unaanza kuwekea mtoto mpaka kaomena, kanjugu, kanini. No, you're doing too much when you do that. So go with this tonight. This baby is still young. The baby's stomach is still small. The capacity is small. So you want to maximize whatever you're giving them. Make sure that it's nutritious and it's sufficient. Sawa. So usipe mtoto maji, usimpe mtoto uji ambaye ni rani. Don't even, I know when we were in school, we used to be told by our Swahili teacher that ni kukula uji. We did not know that it was actually supposed to be kukula uji because it's supposed to be eaten with a spoon. You're not supposed to drink porridge with a cup. Any food that you're going to give the baby, make sure that it does not run over, it does not spill, haimwagiki kwa kijiko. Na usipitishe kwa kichungi alafu uweke kwa chupa alafu umpitishie kwa mnyonyi. Nah. You're going to introduce too many problems again there.
True. And I hope our moms are listening because, yeah, Uji is winning out here. Uji is really winning, and you can't tell them about it. After all, they will tell you our grandmothers, our forefathers, they fed on Uji and they didn't die. Who are you? Who are you? A nutritionist who just went to school for 4 years or 5, and you're there telling them that something that has been done over centuries. Anyway, because every day we learn, I hope we have learned that we need to do away with that. Now, there's something we call growth monitoring. And we have talked about obesity, of course, we talked about underweight. And what are some of the warning signs that a mother or a caregiver needs to look out for to know whether their baby is feeding right, or whether whatever they are introducing is working or not? Some of the signs, early warning signs before we get to malnutrition, because we know our status as a country and where we are at currently. Early warning signs of inadequacy when it comes to food, nutrients.
Thank you
and
so much.
other.
Yeah. That is a very legit issue. First of all, I know that a lot of us do not usually take seriously clinic after mtoto amemaliza masindano. Okay? So, we have to remember that growth monitoring should be monthly because you want to know the graph. How the graph is moving and how we get to see whether the child's weight has dropped ama kama kumekuwa na mabadiliko mahali, right? So too much of gaining weight, too little weight. Ideally, the child is supposed to gain 100 grams per month. Ideally, the baby should have doubled the birth weight by the 4th to 5th to 6 months. Okay, so if you fail to go for the growth monitoring clinics, we are going to get insufficient or insufficient data basically. So I'm going to encourage mothers to make sure that they do growth monitoring monthly so that they can see the pattern of growth. Okay, so your graph is the baby's graph is supposed to follow a certain trajectory upward. Okay, so if the baby is gaining too much weight, you're going to be advised on what to do. If the baby is not gaining sufficient weight, you're going to be told what to do. So that is one thing. Weight is one of the parameters that we need to check when it comes to growth filtering or growth monitoring. Number 2, we need to check whether the baby is feeding the normal way. So the usual way is breastfeeding on demand, and then when you begin feeding the baby, are they taking the recommended 1 to 2 tablespoons at a time, right? So if the baby is not feeding enough, so there could actually be other underlying issues that could be affecting the baby. Maybe kuna digestion issues, maybe the digestive system has issues, maybe the baby has swallowing problems, dysphagia. So the clinical signs that a mother can see is feeding problems. Okay, so if the baby is not feeding well, if they are experiencing constipation, if they are experiencing a lot of vomiting, diarrhea, so that means that we have problems there. Okay, so that definitely is going to derail the baby's growth, and it is also going to affect their health, the general health. Okay, so yeah, I think those are 2 things that I can talk about when it comes to growth monitoring, and it is very important for a mother to know not just a mother, but the whole family, because we are going to involve also the father. I encourage fathers to also be involved, because sometimes, God forbid, that mother could pass on. So you're going to be left with the baby as the primary caregiver. You need to know the trajectory of the baby's growth and how it is going. So let's continue going for the growth monitoring clinic so that we can understand what is going on with our babies. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
and
and
oh, sorry, milestones. So most of the
okay.
books that we have, the booklets that we are usually given in the maternal clinic, it has a space for milestones. So if the baby is failing to achieve those milestones, how ways you control their necks by a certain, it's in the book. Okay, so I know by 6 weeks ukipeleka mtoto wako clinic mara ya kwanza, they're supposed to be able to control their heads, but it has a range. It's not like that it's fixed. No, it's a range. Okay, if they're not able to sit, with support at a certain age, if they're not able to walk at a certain age, so that means that the baby's development is not progressing well. So milestone is definitely something that we need to check. So remember that milestones are also social. They are psychomotor, not just the physical ones. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Because you see, if you ignore your milestones, and also I think also we can add immunity. If the baby starts getting sickly, of course, we can have underlying issues like maybe an infection or an exposure to agents that cause infections, that cause baby to to be sick. But there's a direct link between immune response and nutrition status. So of course that is also something that mothers can look. If you introduce feeds and your baby now was not getting sick with breast milk, and now things start going south month 2 after solid introductions, then of course you can have a sit down with a nutritionist. The problem with mothers, or the problem with Kenya, is that people ignore seeing a nutritionist or a dietetic professional until things are going south. If a mother is not having severe or acute malnutrition, rarely will the physician or the doctors actually send them to a nutritionist. But you see now, before they get to that, there were all warning signs that could have prevented things. So I think, in as much as preaching all this, we also need to be proactive as parents and as mothers and caregivers, and be willing to ask the difficult questions. Why has my baby's immunity dropped? Why was this and this happened? And we also need to want to seek, or actually seek, care from the relevant professionals. My baby is really, really crying. She has refused the bottle kabisa, anataka kunyonya from the source. So I don't know if you have left anything, Eunice, from what you are to discuss.
No, I think we've covered everything. Because of time and also your baby, we need to wrap it up. I think you've talked about something very very important when it comes to milestones, especially mtoto anarudi nyuma kama alikuwa amesha keti and then they start getting drowsy, they lose muscle mass. Yeah, and the immunity part. Mtoto akianza kukua na kamasi kila saa, especially children who are going to daycares and people watoto unawaachia caregivers who are not, you're not very sure about. I know that hustle ni hustle, hawezi shinda kwa nyumba. Not everybody has the luxury of staying at home with their babies. I've seen those immunity issues happening, especially with children that are left, with caregivers and daycare.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have to continue this conversation. Maybe we can do it, I don't know, during the day if things will be better. I really don't know. We have not yet established patterns, but we are really trying. We're really trying. So maybe we can try and have this conversation, because there's a lot that we need to cover. You see, like I've written some of the things that we need to discuss separately up, and nimeandika hapa pia. I write a lot because I tend to think when I'm talking or when I'm listening. So we will have this to continue this conversation, the child care series or the child nutrition care series, because it's very important and the gaps are really loud and they're affecting our masses. So Eunice, thank you so much. Remember, Eunice, you can share, no, I'll share on the comment section your contact, or you can also share it and maybe you can start sharing content on YouTube, because it's going to YouTube. I should have pre-recorded it for LinkedIn, but it ended to YouTube. We'll have another day for LinkedIn. Maybe you can tell us as we go, as we wrap up. Mnasikia nduru ni background. Someone has really refused.
Nduru za kuaminika. Nduru ni za kuaminika. So there's something that when I began my child feeding series, I thought that I would probably just write maybe 8 parts ama 6 parts. Right now I'm in part 14 na bado tunaendelea. because I've just realized like a lot of things are unfolding. When it comes to food security, caregivers, I tend to look at child feeding as not just one dimensional. It's just ati mtoto anakula na inaisha hivyo, hapana. So many factors affect, because when you look at the UNICEF conceptual of UNICEF is it the conceptual framework of malnutrition, goodness, mtoto analia pia pande yangu. So when you tend to look at those things, like the basic causes, the underlying causes, and the immediate issues, hizo zote ziko, they all affect nutrition. So the moment you look at nutrition as one-dimensional, you're going to miss a lot. So I hope you're going to continue with this session. I am going to share my number right now. And it has been a wonderful session. I hope your baby is getting some nutrition. And yeah, I think we are going to be okay. So it has been wonderful. Hata sisi pia hapa kwa background tunalia. We need to go and check, labda ni usingizi tuko nayo, but we had a late nap. So yeah, I think we are okay. Yeah, and I should definitely ninafaa kuanza kupost YouTube, but this life. No, but
you can start live series. But then you can start live series. They're not bad. Conversations. We can normalize the conversation. Then when you're comfortable, you just go ahead and start having the conversation. You invite me. I like having random conversations, by the way. I think I've had structured conversations for so long that I find them a bit tiresome. But of course, we can have random, like what you posted about your motherhood series. You remember it? The one that I told you we need to have a discussion on it. Yeah, random, the questions that we don't ask, the confusion. Mtu ananyonya hapa ni kama haku amekamuliwa maziwa, but it is well. So yeah, we can definitely have those conversations.
So
I think that is it.
Close the door, goodness. So I know one thing about you guys. We're in a charity, you've really encouraged me to come. I realized that I was just sitting on a lot of experiences that I could share, a lot of knowledge, impact on people. And thank you so much for encouraging me. Hey, things are on the pipeline. Tafanya.
Please come out. There's so much that you have to offer. There's so much
that I can share. Yeah. So I think we can wrap it up from here. I have shared my number up our inbox. I hope they're able to see the people that have joined us. We have had a privilege of being joined by about 3 people. Yeah, and now that it's going to YouTube, it's going to be better, and we shouldn't make it so long kwa sababu najua watu wa YouTube hawataki kuwatch video long sana.
People watch podcast discussions, people watch. So I think when we have better, I don't know, Sindio nakwambia, I don't know if we've not established routines yet, but we can definitely have better conversation. Channel, the lighting is better.
It depends on the quality of the conversation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we call it a night. Yeah, we call it a night. Good night. And thank you so much for coming in. Thank you. Pole kwa kukuchelewesha sana, nilikuwa nakamulia watu wamekataa.
Yeah, it's called responsive feeding for a reason. You're not going to feed them the way you want.
Yeah.
They feed when they want. You cannot hold their nose and
how they want.
They have to have their way. Good night, everybody.
Well. Bye. Good night. Thanks for tuning in. Please consider to subscribe and follow and like. Definitely. And follow us on our socials. Okay.